privileged to be a part of this grand celebration of this esteemed institute. And I really thank Professor Longwa for inviting me here. I'm an economist by profession, and I belong to the Institute of Economic Growth in the University of Delhi. So in the last 2 days, I missed the first day. I regret that. But I really learned a lot being among these scientists about various aspects related to nutrition. Now, turning to my presentation today, actually, Dr. Longwa has asked me to, when he first contacted me, I asked him what I will be doing in National Institute of Nutrition. I don't know anything about nutrition. He said you should be speaking about prices, because ultimately it is what makes or unmakes access to food. So, what I will be doing in this is this is based on one of our currently ongoing work. It is on food inflation and food price volatility across states in India. So in this, I'll be speaking mainly about which are the commodities which have become really, in a way, problem commodities as far as inflation and volatility is concerned, and what are its implications for nutrition. Now, briefly, this is from the latest report of State on Food and Nutrition, State of Food and Nutrition by FAO 2018. What it shows is there's a slightly worrying trend. In the last 3 years, there's some kind of a rise at the global level of undernourished people. And now that brings us to the question of what is food security. Now, according to the 1996 World Food Summit, this is a widely accepted definition of food security. So food security exists when all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe and nutritious food that meets their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. Now, this is a very, very comprehensive definition. So to make it workable, what is normally accepted as constituting food security are these 4 pillars. 4 pillars of food security are broadly availability, which is basically the physical availability of food. So the food has to be first physically available. And then stability, that availability has to be stable, it cannot vary year on year. And third is access. So even if food is physically available, if one is not able to purchase it or access it for various reasons, then that doesn't really serve the purpose. So the fourth is absorption, health and sanitation, and I think it has been discussed at length. So the focus in this particular presentation is on economic access to food and its implications to food and nutritional wellness. So that is the third pillar of food security. Now I've skipped this slide because the time is limited. I'll quickly go to what are the broad trends in food inflation. What we have done in this is, if you look at the trends in food inflation over the last 10 years, you will see that these bars actually indicate what is the rate of inflation or rate increase in prices of any particular commodity. So what it shows is that in different years, different commodities have showed very huge inflation. It's not a single commodity or single group of commodities which have shown very high level of prices. This is based on wholesale prices at the national level. So I'll come to what is happening at the state level in a few minutes. Now what this basically implies is that no single commodity has shown inflation all the years. So what it means is that it is imperative to examine the long-term trend. So year on year, different commodities are showing. So we have to understand which are the problem commodities. Then we have to look at actually a slightly longer term trend. That's why we have taken the last 10 years and on an average, what are the commodities that are really creating trouble on price front. So for looking at this, we have looked at 2 aspects of prices. One is continuous increase, sustained increase in prices. The second is fluctuations in prices within a particular year. So over the 10 years, what are the commodities which have shown continuous increase in prices, and what are the commodities which have shown very frequent fluctuations in prices within a year. So this study is basically based on, as I've already told you, forthcoming work by my co-author, Dr. Yogesh Bhatt, and this has also appeared as an International Food Policy Research Institute working paper, a part of this study. So we have attempted to identify major contributing commodities food inflation, and then commodities showing sustained food inflation. Then also we try to identify commodities showing higher volatility, and finally draw some. So I'll quickly, I will not go into the methodological details. It's basically based on a very simple decomposition model, whereby if you take the aggregate food index, what is a food price index, you can actually decompose using this methodology into contribution of various commodities to that aggregate increase in prices. So, and that is as far as the inflation, contribution to inflation is concerned. Then volatility is measured using what is called a very simple method. We have taken, suppose there are 12 months in the year, so we have taken month-on-month growth rates of prices, and then taken standard deviation of all those 12 monthly growth rates. So it's called what is called in the literature as ratio method. And then there are, so these are the two basic tools that we have, methodological tools. Now the data is basically at the national level we have used wholesale price index, and at the state level we have used retail prices. The reason for using wholesale prices at the national level is that we do not have reliable retail prices at the national level. We have only WPI, which is available at a longer time period. Now I quickly come to the results part. So when we look at the national level using WPI, which are the major contributors to food inflation in India? So over a period of 2008 to 16, when we analyze month on month and then average it over different years, then what we see is that milk is the largest contributor to food inflation. What it means is the milk prices have been continuously increasing year after year after year. And the next comes, it is fish, rice, sugar, wheat, and various other commodities you can see in the graph. So as you can see, most of these commodities, which milk, fish, rice, sugar, wheat, all of these are very important commodities in our daily diets. So we have been hearing that there is a lot of focus on cereals, but even cereals appear to be becoming inaccessible over a period of time. Now I want you to focus now what is happening at the state level. That was at the national level. Now at the state level, what we have done is we have collated the data on 16 major states. Major states means for states for which reliable data is available over a period of time. And what we have done is for around 46 commodities we have collected this data for 16 states, and we have looked at which are the commodities which in a particular state we take one commodity and see whether its inflation is above the median inflation or below the median inflation. So if a commodity happens to be above the median in say 6 or more states, because we have taken 16 states, so 1/3 of the states becomes 5. So what we have done is, if a commodity is above the median inflation in a particular state in 6 or more states, then we categorize that as a problem commodity. That is, there is some problem with that because its price is continuously higher. So if you see the last column, the orange cells are the ones those are the commodities which are basically the problem commodities. As you can see, mostly rice, milk, and pulses, vegetables, and fruits. As you can see, they're all really, all those commodities which are crucial in our diets are all showing very high sustained price increase across states. Now, if you come to the year of short-term fluctuations, it is roughly the same story again. It is, except milk. Milk is continuously showing steady increase in price, but without any fluctuation. That it is continuously on a higher trajectory. But other commodities, most of the, particularly the pulses vegetables and fruits, all three show even high short-term fluctuation. That means they're rising year on year, and they're also within a year they're continuously fluctuating. So this is a reason for concern. Now, summing up that particular part, what we see is that these are the problem commodities, which are basically tomato, coming to clearly the commodity level thing. It is tomato, brinjal, onion, arhar, gram, sugar. Arhar is basically chickpea for those of you in the, from other countries. So gram is arhar is pigeon pea and gram is chickpea. Sugar, urad, butter, and all these commodities, they are listed here, problem commodities on as far as food inflation. And then there are roughly the same commodities are showing higher problem commodities as far as volatility is concerned. So I'm not going to go into which are the states because time is limited, but actually we have identified the states where inflation and volatility is a major concern. Karnataka, Maharashtra, some of these high income states is where food inflation appears to be pretty high, and also volatility. Now, what is the implication of this particular analysis? As we have seen, it is basically the cereals, pulses, fruits and vegetables. These are the fruits, vegetables and pulses are showing both inflation as well as volatility. Cereals and milk and sugar are showing very high inflation, continuous increase, but not much volatility. So what does it mean? What it means is basically that, so some of the energy rich foods like rice, wheat and other things, since they show this sustained increase in prices, they are becoming inaccessible, or they are difficult to access. Without the public distribution system and other things, probably our consumption would have really fallen very low. And then similar is the case with protein rich foods. I mean, this is basically the data that I've taken from NIN, actually the thing. Those protein rich foods, if you see, most of the foods that are rich in protein also happen to fall in that high volatility and high inflation bracket. Now, if you look at some of the other commodities which are not figuring in those two tables, so milk, potatoes, onions, actually we have had very rich discussions yesterday and day before, and today also, on the nutritive value of these various foods. So if you can see that some of the other commodities which are falling in that high inflation and high volatility thing are milk, potatoes, onions, tomatoes, banana and apples. So all these are very crucial for our nutrition. And so this is a reason for concern. Now, what are the policy takeaways? So we have seen that all the important foods which have some implications for nutrition security are showing either high inflation or volatility or both. So the policy takeaways are that sustained price in staple foods such as rice, milk, sugar and fish is a cause for concern. And high volatility of fruits and vegetables underscores the importance of addressing perishability. I think someone in the last session, the chair actually has pointed out this very important thing. Volatility, I could not present the month-on-month figures for many of these things because of lack of time. But what it shows is there is this huge spikes in prices and then sudden complete crash in the prices. Why it happens is that in India, most of the, I think Professor Chadda in the previous session has shown us that 20% of our fruits and vegetables is actually lost during storage and other things. So the importance of perishability is actually highlighted here, comes through very clearly. And increasing shelf life through processing is very essential, and this requires policies to attract investment into processing. Then high volatility of pulses needs judicial policy of production planning and imports, because pulses, we have been stagnant in production, and also that is one particular commodity for which there are very few sources internationally. There are hardly any sources. Edible oils we have many, but for pulses we do not have. So our production also needs to be improved, and we have to really do something with our storage, and other things also need to be improved. And some of the, actually I have not presented the results on what causes this inflation and volatility. Actually what we have found to our analysis is that both demand and supply factors are equally important. But for some commodities, demand side factors are extremely important, particularly fruits, vegetables, and milk. The demand side means basically the high increase in incomes is becoming important. At the same time, there is something about the policy on imports and what you do with, particularly for pulses, is important. And increase in the price of cereals, particularly rice and wheat, needs some kind of thought on our procurement policy or minimum support price and also liquidation of stocks. So with this, I'll stop here and thank you for your attention.
But all the items of food you have not really taken into consideration. Like, you know that for protein content, other sources of meat is also important. And it's a vast country like India. You have got the duck, you have got the other birds, you have got the cow, you have got the other animal sources. So I am sure that those items which supplies meat in the diet of the population, have you analyzed those things as well? It would have been better for understanding the whole concept of meat and milk together, because this comes under the protein section in nutrition. Thank you very much.
So shall I take answer? Thanks for that question. It's a good question. Actually, I could not dwell on it much because of time. What we did is basically, to start with, we have started with a large number of commodities, particularly the ones for which not only price data but also the production and other supply and demand side variables are, because we also wanted to look at what are the underlying drivers of inflation. So what I have presented is only the price patterns, but underlying factors was also involved. So having said that, what we have done is, first we have looked at this contribution across states. Here I am presenting only the all India picture. It's not coming out there. Yeah, in one of the pie diagrams I have shown the contribution of various commodities to food inflation. What we have done is, we have done that for each state and then seen which are the commodities which are figuring in more than 80% of the states, which are contributing, say, suppose 5 or 6 commodities or 10 commodities are contributing more than 80% to the overall inflation. So we have restricted our analysis to those commodities which are contributing more. So the list that in the subsequent slides that I have shown actually is a restricted list of only those commodities which have been found to be major contributors across states. That's the thing.
So you have got other contributors as well?
There are, those are minor in some sense, because of their weight and other factors actually.
Any question from the floor?
Thanks very much. That was a very interesting talk. Could I ask about price elasticities? So you've provided some very useful information about inflation. And what about the impact on purchasing? Do you have any information on, have you calculated direct or indirect price elasticities?
Price elasticity of food supply or demand?
Demand.
Oh, demand we have not really calculated. Basically what we have done is, we have in this study, it's an eclectic model which basically calculates the inverse demand elasticity. So price as a function of the production coming into the market or the market arrival. So the last point in my summary actually mentions econometric results. What it shows is basically, for many of the products, the production obviously has an impact on price, but not only the production but also the cost and also policy variables, particularly minimum support price and some of the things like demand, monthly per capita expenditure, which is the demand side variable that we have taken. But these have some effect. But yes, not direct price elasticity of demand, but inverse elasticity of demand. That we have done.
Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. I just wonder, when you show this kind of calendar change of the price, did we control like the food did you compare the production side of the pattern? Is there any kind of external factor like climate change, or there is also a global market price change at that time? Second one is more of the comment. What you discovered here in India is you found the processing the requirement is needed. This is confirming to what we have studied in FAO, that the perishable or non-perishable of the product in terms of food waste and loss are very big difference, and this relate to the shelf life of the processing. So it's very important to increase the investment on the processing. Thank you.
Yeah, if I have understood your question correctly, actually whether we have factored in the international market's effect on price. Yes, we have done. Actually, I have not presented the econometric analysis results. So one of the major factors which has been taken into account is the international price and also the trade that happens in a particular commodity, exports or imports. So what we have found is that for many commodities, international price does matter. Something as basic as rice also, in which India is the largest exporter of rice as of today, but international price does matter to our retail price. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Shekhar. Maybe you have to wait 2 more minutes.